The medal ceremony had barely ended when Colonel Harris pulled me aside with that look. The one that meant my sure leave was about to evaporate. "Sergeant Cole, you're being reassigned. Effective immediately." I stared at the bronze star still warm in my palm, earned for dragging 3 wounded Marines through Kepler-7's jungle, while bleeding from shrapnel wounds I couldn't feel anymore. "Sir, I was told I had 2 weeks." The Valenthi delegation arrived early. "Their princess requires a personal guard. You've been selected." I almost laughed. Almost. Babysitting duty. After 12 years of frontline combat. Harris's jaw tightened. "This isn't a request. The Valenthi alliance is the only thing standing between us and the Kether swarm. Princess Lyra is here to finalize the treaty. She specifically requested a decorated human soldier. You fit the profile." "What profile?" "Someone who's seen enough death to understand what we're trying to prevent." 20 minutes later, I stood outside quarters in the diplomatic wing, my dress uniform feeling like a costume. The door slid open before I could knock. She was smaller than I expected. The Valenthi were known for their towering stature, their crystalline skin that refracted light like living prisms. But this princess barely reached my shoulder. Her skin held a soft lavender hue rather than the brilliant azure of mature Volanth. And her eyes, they were ancient, far too old for a face that couldn't have been more than equivalent to 20 human years. "You are Sergeant Marcus Cole," she said, "not a question. Your Highness, you killed 47 Kether soldiers in the siege of Proxima Station. You held a corridor alone for 9 hours while civilians evacuated. You have nightmares about the ones you couldn't save." I felt my spine stiffen. "With respect, ma'am, I don't see how I can raid your file. All of it." She stepped back, allowing me entry, including the parts your military tried to redact. The quarters were sparse for royalty. A simple bed, a desk covered in holographic documents, a window overlooking Earth's Pacific Ocean. No servants, no guards, just her. "I requested you because you understand sacrifice," she continued, settling into a chair that seemed too large for her frame, not the weight of it. "I'm a soldier, Your Highness. I follow orders." "Yes." Something flickered across her face. Disappointment, perhaps. That's what they all say until the moment they have to choose between orders and what's right. I remained at attention by the door. "Is there something specific you need me to protect you from?" "My own people, Sergeant." She turned to face the window. "I am not merely here to finalize a treaty. I am here because if I return to Valenthi Prime, I will be executed." The silence stretched between us. "The treaty I'm proposing would share our shielding technology with humanity. My government believes this would make us vulnerable." "They're correct." She looked at me over her shoulder. "But the Kether swarm doesn't care about political boundaries. They will consume us all, Valenthi and humans alike, unless we stand together. And your government disagrees." "My government ordered me to sabotage these negotiations. When I refused, they sent assassins. 3 attempts so far." She raised her hand, and I noticed for the first time the thin scar running from her wrist to her elbow. "The last one almost succeeded. So, I'm not here to protect you from external threats. You're here because a human guard cannot be bribed or blackmailed by Valenthi interests." And because she paused, something vulnerable crossed her features before she masked it. "Because I have been alone for a very long time. Sergeant is surrounded by people who see me as a symbol or a threat. Never simply as Liara." I should have felt honored. Instead, I felt the familiar weight of responsibility settling onto shoulders already bowed by 12 years of carrying the dead. "I'll do my job, Your Highness." "I know." She turned back to the window. "I just hope by the end you'll understand why I chose you for more than your service record." The first week established a rhythm I hadn't experienced since basic training. Predictable, structured, almost peaceful. Princess Lyra spent her days in negotiations with Earth's United Council, and snorted. I stood behind her like a statue, watching for threats that never materialized. But it was the nights that surprised me. "You don't sleep," she observed on the 8th evening, finding me on the balcony at 300 hours. "Neither do you, apparently." She settled into the chair beside mine, her lavender skin catching the moonlight. "Valenthi requires only 4 hours of rest." "What is your excuse?" "Old habits, nightmares." I didn't respond. "On Valenthi Prime," she said quietly, "we have a concept called Marath. It translates roughly as the weight of witnessed death. Our warriors carry it until they find someone to share the burden." Sounds like therapy with extra steps. The ghost of a smile crossed her face. "Perhaps, but there is wisdom in acknowledging that no one should carry such weight alone. With respect, Your Highness, you're a princess. What do you know about carrying death?" The moment the words left my mouth, I regretted them. But she didn't flinch. "I was 14 when the Cather destroyed our colony on Villain 3. 60,000 Valenthi. I watched the feeds as they died. I heard their screams through the communication arrays." Her voice remained steady, but her hands trembled slightly. I was the one who ordered the evacuation that failed. My first command, my first failure. You were a child. I was a princess. There is no childhood in that title. She met my eyes. You see, Sergeant, I did not choose you because you are broken. I chose you because you survived your breaking. And I need to learn how. Something shifted in my chest. A wall developing its first crack. The dreams don't stop, I said finally. You just learn to wake up quieter. And the guilt you carry it. Some days it's heavier than others. She was silent for a long moment. Then will you teach me how to carry it? That's not really in my job description. Consider it an addendum. Against my better judgment, I nodded. The training session started the next day. Not combat. She had her own guards for that. Volanthi warriors who kept their distance from me with barely concealed distrust. Instead, I taught her the things that kept me functional. Breathing exercises, grounding techniques, the art of boxing up trauma so it didn't leak into every waking moment. You compartmentalize, she observed during our third session. You separate the soldier from the man. It's the only way to survive. And is the man still alive in there, or did you wall him up so long ago you've forgotten he exists? I didn't have an answer. The assassination attempt came on day 12 till we were returning from a late session with the council when the lights cut out. I had Lara against the wall and my sidearm drawn before the emergency systems kicked in. 2 contacts, I whispered, reading the thermal signatures through my combat implant. Coming from the West Corridor. Valanthi Human actually hired guns. My people are learning to outsource. Despite everything, I almost laughed. Then the first attacker rounded the corner. The fight was brief and brutal. I dropped the first with a shot to the shoulder, disabled the second with a chokehold that left him unconscious but alive. Standard protocol. Dead assassins couldn't answer questions, but as I turned to check on Lyra, I found her standing over a third attacker I hadn't even seen. Her hand pressed against his forehead, his body convulsing. What was the Valanthi neural disruption? She said calmly, stepping back as the man collapsed. Non-lethal, but he will have a considerable headache for several days. You could have told me you had combat training. You didn't ask. She looked at me, something unreadable in her ancient eyes. I am not helpless, Sergeant. I merely needed someone who would fight beside me rather than in front of me. That night, she found me on the balcony again. Thank you, she said, for protecting me. It's my job. Yes, she sat in her usual chair. But you also protected the attackers. You could have killed them. Your combat record suggests you would have once. Things change. People change. She was quiet for a moment. You are not the man in those files, Marcus Cole. I think perhaps you never were. It was the first time she'd used my first name. The summit on Luna was supposed to be a formality, the final signing that would bind humanity and Valanthi in an alliance that could stand against the swarm. 3 days of ceremony and celebration before the real work began. It became a nightmare within hours of our arrival. The Cather fleet just entered the solar system, Colonel Harris's hologram reported, his face grim. 47 vessels. They're heading straight for Earth. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted over each other. Military advisors pulled up tactical displays. And through it all, Lyra sat perfectly still. They knew, she said quietly, her voice somehow cutting through the noise. They knew about the alliance, the exact moment we would be most vulnerable. A leak in my delegation most likely. My government would rather see Earth burn than share our technology. I moved closer, lowering my voice. Can your shield tech stop a fleet that size? If we had time to deploy it, yes, but the installation process takes 72 hours minimum. The fleet will arrive in 36. Then we need to buy time. She looked at me and in her eyes I saw something. I recognized the terrible clarity that comes when all options narrow to one. I know how, she said. But it will require me to return to the Valanthi flagship. Absolutely not, Marcus. They tried to kill you 3 times, and now you want to walk into their hands. I want to activate the emergency protocols that will deploy the shield network across your entire solar system. She stood, drawing herself up to her full, admittedly modest height. My biometrics are required. My voice codes, my presence. There is no other way. Then I'm coming with you. You would not survive. The flagship's atmosphere is not compatible with human physiology. Then we find another way. There is no other way. Her voice cracked. The first time I'd heard her composure break. Don't you understand? This is why I was sent here, not to negotiate, not to forge alliances. I was sent here to die in a way that would benefit my people. And I spent 3 months refusing that fate. She took a shaking breath. But if my death can save both our species, then perhaps that was always the purpose of my life. I grabbed her shoulders gently but firmly enough to make her meet my eyes. No, Marcus. I spent 12 years watching good people sacrifice themselves because they thought they were expendable. I've held them while they died. I've written letters to their families, and I've carried their faces with me every single night since. My voice was rougher than I intended. You are not expendable, Lyra, and I'm not letting you throw your life away. The SHIELD network. There has to be another way. There's always another way. How can you be so certain? Because you taught me that. All those nights on the balcony, all those conversations about weight and burden and survival, I loosened my grip but didn't let go. You showed me that the broken pieces can be put back together, that the weight doesn't have to crush you. So don't you dare give up now. She stared at me for a long moment, then impossibly, she smiled. You called me Lyra. Yeah, well, seemed appropriate given I'm about to commit treason. Her smile faded. What do you mean those assassins we captured? They talked. Your government has been monitoring all communications in and out of this delegation. I pulled out a device I'd been carrying for 2 days, waiting for the right moment, including the codes to override the flagship's security. How did you? I was a frontline soldier for 12 years, Your Highness. You think I never learned how to improvise? You could face execution for this? Probably. I finally released her shoulders. But my job is to protect you. And sometimes protection means finding ways for you to survive your own nobility. The plan was insane. It was reckless. It violated approximately 17 interstellar treaties and would almost certainly end my military career. We executed it anyway. The flagship's command deck was beautiful in the way that poisonous things often are. Crystalline structures refracting light into patterns that would have been hypnotic if I hadn't been wearing an emergency atmosphere suit with all maybe 40 minutes of air left. Security override accepted, the ship's AI announced in harmonious Valanthi tones. Princess Lyra, your biometrics have been authenticated. Lara moved to the central console, her fingers dancing across interfaces I couldn't read. Shield network initializing. Deployment will begin in 3 minutes, Your Highness. The voice came from behind us. I had hoped it wouldn't come to this. We turned to find Admiral Velos flanked by 6 armed guards. The Admiral was everything Lyra was not. Tall, brilliant azure, radiating the kind of authority that came from centuries of command. Admiral Dot. Liara's voice was steady. I assume you're here to stop me. I'm here to complete my mission. Veltos's eyes flickered to me with barely concealed disgust. You brought a human onto a Valanthi vessel. Do you understand the insult? I brought a friend. You brought a weapon you intended to use against your own people. I brought someone who taught me that sacrifice isn't the only form of strength. Lyra stepped forward, placing herself between me and the guards. I have spent my entire life being told that my value lies in what I can give up. My childhood, my freedom, my life. Her voice grew stronger. But he showed me something different. He showed me that surviving is its own form of courage. Pretty words from a traitor. I am not a traitor. I am trying to save us all. Valanthi and human. The Cathar don't care about our borders or our politics. They will consume everything unless we stand together. The alliance will weaken us. Isolation has already weakened us. Liara's composure finally cracked completely. We have been dying slowly for generations, Admiral. Our population declining, our colonies falling, our technology stagnating because we refuse to share knowledge. She gestured at me. The humans are young and chaotic and terrifying, but they are also adaptable, creative. They find solutions we would never imagine because they haven't learned what's impossible yet. Solutions like breaking onto a military vessel with stolen codes. Yes, Lara's voice dropped. Exactly like that. A quiet alarm chimed. The shield network deployment had begun. Velos's expression hardened. You've doomed us all. No, I've given us a chance. Lyra raised her hand and I saw it then. The same neural disruption she'd used on the assassin, but amplified. Her entire arm glowed with barely contained energy. I don't want to hurt you, Admiral, but I will protect this alliance with everything I have. The standoff stretched for an eternity. Then slowly, Velos raised his hand, signaling the guards to stand down. You're making a mistake, he said quietly. The Council will. The Council sent me here to die. Whatever they do now, it won't be worse than that. She held the glow for another moment, then let it fade. The effort cost her. I could see her trembling slightly, but she stayed on her feet. The shield network is active. She announced the Cathar fleet will be repelled. Earth is safe. And when this is over, she looked directly at Velos. I will return to Valanthi Prime and answer for my choices, but I will do so as an architect of survival, not as a sacrifice. We made it off the flagship with 7 minutes of air left in my suit. The Cathar fleet broke against the shield network like waves against a cliff, retreating back to dark space with their forces decimated. And when the dust settled, the alliance held. The inquiry lasted 3 weeks. I was stripped of my rank, officially censured and quietly reassigned to a diplomatic support role that everyone understood was Lyra's security detail under a different name. She found me on our balcony the night the orders came through. I'm sorry, she said. You lost everything because of me, not everything. I looked at her, really looked at her for the first time since the crisis. The lavender of her skin had deepened slightly, closer to the azure of her people. She seemed taller somehow, or maybe she just held herself differently. I lost a career I was already dying in, and I gained what? I struggled to find the words purpose, connection, something to protect that isn't just an objective on a mission briefing. She sat beside me, closer than she ever had before. On Valanthi Prime, when someone saves your life, you, Snorts, owe them a debt that can never be repaid. I didn't save your life. No, you saved something more important. She reached out and took my hand, the first physical contact she'd initiated in our entire time together. You saved my belief that life was worth living, that I was more than a symbol or a sacrifice. Lara, I was assigned to choose a protector who would guard me until the alliance was complete. I chose you because your file showed a man who had lost himself and needed to be found. Her fingers tightened around mine, but you ended up saving me instead. And now I don't know how to go back to a life where I don't hear your voice every day, where I don't share my burdens with someone who understands their weight. I'm not going anywhere. You can't know that. My government still wants me dead. Your military barely tolerates my presence. The alliance is fragile and our enemies are many. Yeah, I turned my hand to properly hold hers, and none of that changes what I said. I am not going anywhere. She leaned into my shoulder and we sat there in silence, watching Earth's moon rise over an ocean that had almost been destroyed. I was assigned to protect you, I said finally, but you were right. You ended up saving me, gave me something to live for again. We saved each other, Marcus. Her voice was soft, tired, and completely at peace. That's what allies do. The stars wheeled overhead, indifferent to the small dramas of the species below. But on that balcony, in that moment, two people who had been broken by different wars found something worth rebuilding together. And maybe that was its own kind of victory.